y'all, it's Miss Katie from Heritage Ways, and today I have a very special recipe to share with y'all today. I've been wanting to make this for y'all for a long time, and then a special fun collaboration came along, and I am going to share this as part of that collaboration. It is most definitely a heritage recipe for me and my family. Well, welcome friends. I'm glad you're here. And this video is part of a collaboration started by Vickie at Vickie's Country Home, and I'll link her channel right here. She has great ideas, great content. We've emailed back and forth. We're becoming friends, and I'm so excited about that because she's just so full of knowledge and love of kitchen and heritage and things like I am, and we are. So this collaboration is called Family Memories Monday, and she asked that we make a recipe and we share the memories that go with the recipe. Well, y'all, you know that I am writing a cookbook for my descendants. Will it ever get done? Oh my word. Including memories that go with pretty much every recipe, where it came from, how we used it, and that kind of thing. So that's my legacy, my gift to my descendants. All right, so the first two videos I made for this collaboration. The first one was the chicken enchiladas, and it takes us back a little bit in our family history, just a few years. The second one is the cheese souffle, and that takes me back a little bit further, you know, before I was married, into my family history. This recipe takes us back even further to my childhood and the generations before me. We are making springeles. Now, I'm not an expert. I'm not a German. I'm of German descent, but I'm, you know, not enough to know German cooking like the back of my hand. I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert in any field, y'all. And this can be pronounced and written. I've seen it springerle and springele. So I'm going to go with what my German uncle, who immigrated from Germany in the early 1900s, and I'm going to go with what he says in his spelling. So just for the sake of this video. My German uncle is by marriage. Was my great uncle. And his wife was my great aunt biologically. So Aunt Coco, put together this recipe book, cookbook, kind of the same idea of what I'm doing now, full of history as well. And her husband was Uncle Peter Rauch. And so Uncle Pete taught me a lot. Love him, miss him. So we're making springeles. I've already cracked 4 eggs in my KitchenAid, and I have also weighed out a pound of powdered sugar. Now I'm just going to add this real quick because I have learned already from Vickie at Vickie's Country Home. I have one of these little scales for my soap making, and she uses this in her cooking. And to be quite honest, I've been cooking 41 years pretty much, and I've never used this for my cooking. I don't know why, I just haven't. And so I learned that from her, and I weighed my powdered sugar using the scales. So instead of guesstimating like I always do, I just point that out to say that y'all, you can learn from all kinds of sources. I learned everything that I know from so many sources, including media. You know, back when there was no Food Network, but I watched Julia Child on Channel 8 and Justin Wilson and Natalie Dupree and all those. So Martha Stewart. And so I learned, as well as humans, my mother and the people who've gone before me, men and women. So I just point that out because we can always learn. And so thanks, Vickie, for that tip and that information, because that's how I measured my powdered sugar today. All right, so in my KitchenAid, we're going to mix or whip for 20 minutes on medium high. 4 eggs. These are my farm fresh eggs. A pound of confectioner's sugar, powdered sugar. So I'm just going to, what I'm going to do first, I'm actually going to I'm going to kind of whisk these eggs up to break them. Okay, there. Right, so I'm just going to, there, I've added that pound, and then just a pinch of my healthy sea salt, Redmond salt. That's it. I'm going to just turn this on for 20 minutes. We're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of anise oil. Now, this is kind of like licorice flavoring. I mean, the taste of it is. And that's why some of my family members don't love this recipe, but it's their loss in my opinion, and it's more for me. So here is a pure anise extract, from the Walnut Creek Flavorings. I got that in Ohio. This is anise oil. So this is extract and this is oil. 1/4 teaspoon. It says 1/4 teaspoon scant. A scant 1/4 teaspoon. So scant means not full if you're new to cooking or that word. And so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to add, I'm actually going to eyeball it. I'm going to add what I think is a scant 1/4 teaspoon. It's 5, 6, 7, or 8 drops. And then I'm going to add, I've got my 3 cups of flour. This is my all-purpose, it's King Arthur all-purpose. This one is. And a teaspoon of baking powder. So I've got my baking powder here. And I'm going, again, just to estimate, because I mean, I know what a teaspoon is. Teaspoon. All right, baking powder. And then a tablespoon of cream or softened butter. So I'm using cream just because my butter's not soft today. Okay, so I'm just going to mix this thoroughly and I'm going to scrape my sides down. I have to unplug it because my mixer's got issues with the little button, the on and off switch. Okay, I've scraped the sides down. Just getting it mixed together. Do y'all have ancestors who you know immigrated from other countries? I would love to know that information just for the fun of it. Y'all want to comment down below. My people, my people are Scotch-Irish and German ancestry. But this recipe, like I mentioned at the beginning, comes from my Uncle Pete, who is, you know, completely German ancestry. So he and my Aunt Coco didn't have any children, so we, their nieces and nephews and their great nieces and nephews and their great great nieces and nephews were their children. So we were so blessed to have them in our lives. Okay, so this just we finished mixing this up, and then we're going to be rolling it out here in a little bit, but it does have to chill before we roll it out. So I'm going to chill it probably an hour or 2 in the refrigerator. Okay, in the fridge we go for an hour or so. It's been about 2 hours since my dough for the Springele cookies has chilled in the fridge. So it's going to be ready to roll out. I want to read to you just a second about Uncle Pete from the cookbook that I told you that Aunt Coco produced for us. And they're both gone and we miss them. But it says about the cookies, this is Pete's recipe, and they are the first thing our family members ask for when they come to see us at Christmas time. Now, my family, my mama and daddy growing up, we lived in Tennessee, but daddy is from Ohio, so that's where my family, all these family members lived, and we always went to Ohio at Christmas time. And it's true that we asked for these cookies. They were so good. It says, Pete makes this recipe many times at Christmas as we give them as gifts to many of our friends and neighbors. So that's true too. A lot of their friends and neighbors were and are Amish and are still my friends. Those descendants and children and grandchildren of Pete and Aunt Coco, Uncle Pete and Aunt Coco's friends are now my friends. She says, Peter joins the family. Peter's family immigrated to this country from Heidelberg, Germany in 1923 and became American citizens, although his parents never learned to speak English. During our visit to Germany in 1984, I learned that the German people were lovers of good food and that they had a very happy outlook on life and enjoyed good conversation and good singing. They laugh easily, and that's true, Uncle Pete did. When Peter became a member of our family, we were introduced to many German dishes that we had not been accustomed to. He learned much about cooking from his mother, as well as from the German bakery in Detroit, where he worked prior to his being drafted into the Army in 1941. Peter has given us here some of the recipes that he enjoys making, and we all have looked forward to his cooking. So he was, still living when she made the recipe cookbook, and this is just a treasure for our family to have. So let's go over here to my Uncle Pete and Aunt Coco's Hoosier cabinet that I inherited from them, and let's talk about how to roll out and cut our Springele cookies. Okay, I have my Springele dough, and I'm going to position the camera in a minute so that you can better see what I'm doing. But before I do that, let me read right here in the recipe where it says, she says, after the dough is chilled, place the cut cookies on a lightly dusted cookie sheet and let them set overnight. Just set out, not in the refrigerator, but just set out on the counter or on the table. She says, I put them on cookie sheets and then I don't have to move them. But when you're cutting them, she does make this note. She says, chill the dough before rolling it out to cut. And then she says, we have a regular Springele rolling pin with the designs cut in it. Well, what's very special to me is that same rolling pin hangs in my kitchen. I inherited this rolling pin because I was the one that showed an interest in how to make the Springele cookies. So I want you to see this. This is a heritage item for me, and I would love to hear in the comments below if any of you are familiar with Springele cookies. Do you pronounce it differently? Is the recipe the same? Do you use this rolling pin? But look at the indentions that this makes on the cookies, and that's such a unique item. But this is the same one Uncle Pete and Aunt Coco used. So let's roll out the Springele cookies. Okay, I'm gonna get some flour. Lightly flour my surface. I'm just gonna get this dough put on the floured surface. It's a little stiff, that's okay, it's supposed to be. I like this little scraper cutter thing for jobs like this, but don't want it to stick, but I don't want to add too much extra flour. So it's a happy balance here, just trying to get, the only thing I'm doing right now, I'm not trying to knead it, I'm just trying to get it to where it's not sticking to the surface. Okay, I'm just ready to roll this out. I'm gonna put a little bit of flour on here, just to extra insurance, I guess. And I'm gonna press down lightly. I don't want to mash my cookie and make it so thin. See, but I want to have the imprint. I can tell you I've made the mistake of rolling it too thinly in the past. And like I said, I don't claim to be an expert at this, but I'll just keep trying year after year, and Lord willing, I'll get better each year. Put them over here on what happens to be Uncle Pete's cookie sheet that I inherited. I like to use parchment. Do y'all use parchment? Makes the job easier. No sticking. Never had anything to stick or burn. Well, maybe it burned, but it didn't stick. Okay. Oh dear. You know, I'm not an expert at keeping that imprint. I don't know if maybe I don't press hard enough, maybe. I mean, it tastes the same. You could even make these with a regular rolling pin. The imprint doesn't have a flavor, obviously. I know that you can put these in molds, Springele molds. Now, I've never done that. I don't have Springele molds, and that's not the way Uncle Pete did it, so it's just the way I do it. I think another reason maybe that the image, the imprint maybe spreads out and doesn't stay firm. It could be that Uncle Pete and Aunt Coco used more flour after the cooling, you know, right before they rolled it out, than they talk about in their cookbook. So, you know, it may just be a trick that we learn over time. But I can tell you right now that these are not going to be beautiful prize-winning Springeles. The imprint, sadly, I think is not going to be as present as it could be. So what I'm going to do as an experiment for that is I'm going to need some more flour in this rest of this, and let's see what turns out. There's that pan. You know what? Okay, here we go. This made a difference. Adding a little more flour than you would expect. Oh, look at that. Right before you roll it out. Look at that. That's already going to work. Well, now I've learned something here on my own video. I have learned something. That's okay. That's okay. There are little grooves in the rolling pin, and that's your cutting line in there. So we've got our pan of Springeles. This is where I didn't add enough flour in before we rolled them out, and you can already see they're spreading and losing their imprint. And then these more flour was added. So what do you think? It's Sunday night. I've brewed a pot of decaf coffee, and I'm gonna enjoy some of Uncle Pete's Springeles. Fresh raw cream in my coffee. Oh, that's always good. Okay, so the verdict on the Springeles, there you go. And when it's broken open, it's very dense. Some folks like to let it dry out. I don't necessarily, but it is a good dipping cookie for your coffee. So I hope you're inspired to make a recipe from your own heritage. And maybe you'll try this recipe. It's good, it's different. And just remember to use a little extra flour when rolling it out. And it doesn't have to have the imprint. to be a delicious cookie. So my Uncle Pete's Springelles. Thanks for the memories, Uncle Pete and Aunt Coco. I love you and I miss you. But I'm gonna pass on the heritage. Bye, friends.